As we approach the series finale of The Handmaid's Tale, Aunt Lydia's journey stands at a pivotal crossroads. A woman who once embodied the terrifying enforcement of Gilead's oppression now finds herself on the precipice of what could be the most profound character transformation of the entire series. Episode 9's shocking moment at the gallows, where she finally broke ranks and publicly denounced the commander's wickedness, wasn't just a cathartic moment for viewers. It was the culmination of 6 seasons of meticulous character development and the spark that may ignite her final evolution in the upcoming finale. The evolution of the Enforcer, Lydia's journey through Gilead. When we first met Aunt Lydia, she wielded cattle prods and orchestrated ceremonial maimings with an almost religious fervor. Her brutal enforcement of Gilead's doctrine on the handmaids under her charge positioned her as one of the show's most terrifying antagonists. Ann Dowd's chilling performance made Lydia into more than just a villain. She became the human face of systemic oppression, a true believer who saw herself as saving these fallen women through cruelty disguised as tough love. Yet even in those early seasons, the show planted seeds of complexity beneath her ruthless exterior. Her genuine, if twisted, care for her girls occasionally surfaced through the brutality. Her special attachment to Janine, alternating between maternal protection and severe punishment, revealed the contradictions at her core. This wasn't just a one-dimensional zealot. This was a woman who had convinced herself that her cruelty served a higher purpose. Season 3 began peeling back the layers when we glimpsed Lydia's pre-Gilead life as a devoted teacher who experienced romantic rejection and subsequently inflicted moral judgment on a vulnerable mother. This pivotal flashback showed us that Lydia's embrace of Gilead's ideology wasn't random. It was the culmination of her own repressed desires and moral rigidity finding a system that validated her worst impulses. But the true turning point came as Lydia witnessed the escalating barbarity of Gilead's male leadership. The executions, the cruelty beyond even what she deemed necessary, and particularly her growing protectiveness over Janine began creating hairline fractures in her ideological foundation. By season 6, these cracks had become fault lines as she increasingly questioned the regime she once championed. Behind the cattle prod. Decoding Lydia's motivations. Understanding. Aunt Lydia requires recognizing that her cruelty has always been fueled by a distorted sense of righteousness rather than simple sadism. Her pra-Gilead flashback revealed a woman who genuinely cared for her students, but whose personal romantic disappointments calcified into rigid moral judgment. In Gilead, she found a system that weaponized this tendency and gave it divine sanction. At her core, Lydia has always been driven by a desperate need for order in a chaotic world. Her enforcement of Gilead's rules isn't just about control. It's about her fundamental belief that strict boundaries protect women from harm, even if enforcing those boundaries requires inflicting harm herself. This circular logic has trapped her in a prison of her own making. Her relationship with Janine has been the most significant catalyst for her evolution. What began as a project of breaking and molding a rebellious spirit evolved into something more complex, a maternal bond that forced Lydia to confront the humanity of the women she was tasked with controlling. When Janine began showing genuine kindness to Lydia, despite years of abuse, it created cognitive dissonance that the aunt could no longer ignore. Thematically, Lydia represents the complicity of women in their own oppression, how some women become enforcers of patriarchal systems in exchange for relative power within those systems. Her journey examines whether redemption is possible for those who've facilitated tremendous suffering, even if they weren't its architects. As the series approaches its conclusion, Lydia stands as a crucial exploration of how systems of oppression recruit the oppressed to maintain control. The final chapter, Predicting Aunt Lydia's Fate. The evidence from Episode 9's explosive execution has set the stage for several possible conclusions to Lydia's story, each with compelling evidence supporting it. Scenario 1, the martyr's path. The first and perhaps most dramatically satisfying possibility is that Aunt Lydia's public denouncement of the commanders was just the beginning. In the finale, she could fully embrace resistance by actively working to save handmaids, particularly Janine, culminating in a sacrifice that costs Lydia her life but redeems her soul. The evidence for this outcome lies in the narrative patterns established throughout the series. Characters who find redemption in The Handmaid's Tale often pay the ultimate price, Lawrence's bombing sacrifice in Episode 9 being the most recent example. Lydia's outburst at the gallows has already marked her as dangerous to the regime, and Gilead doesn't forgive such transgressions. This ending would provide poetic justice, the woman who once presided over the Red Center dying to free those she once imprisoned. It would also create a powerful emotional catharsis for viewers who have both despised and pitied Lydia throughout the series. However, this scenario directly contradicts what we know about the Testament's connection. Ann Dowd is confirmed to reprise her role as Aunt Lydia in the sequel series, where she works from within to dismantle Gilead. This makes a martyr's death in the finale highly unlikely. Scenario 2, the secret revolutionary. The more likely scenario, given the Testament's constraints, is that the finale will show Lydia making a decisive turn toward covert resistance. After her public outburst, she may face questioning or punishment, but ultimately convince the remaining leadership of her continued loyalty, all while beginning to gather intelligence and position herself to protect handmaids from within the system. That Lydia's moment in execution serves as a crucial catalyst for her future role in the Testaments, where she works to dismantle Gilead from within. Her arc in the finale would solidify her commitment to this internal resistance, providing a clear trajectory for her character into the sequel series. The emotional core of this scenario would likely involve Janine. Perhaps Lydia will save her from execution, secretly help her escape, or position her somewhere safer within Gilead's hierarchy. Janine may not have a happy ending, and could become a martyr whose death serves as a catalyst for Aunt Lydia's radicalization. If Janine is executed despite Lydia's efforts to save her, this could be the final push that fully commits Lydia to working against Gilead from within. Scenario 3, the ambiguous middle ground. A third possibility acknowledged the show's penchant for moral complexity. Lydia might end the series in a deliberately ambiguous position, neither fully redeemed nor completely villainous, but somewhere in that gray area where so many of the show's characters ultimately reside. In this scenario, the finale could show Lydia taking small steps toward resistance while still participating in aspects of Gilead's oppression. Perhaps she helps one handmaid escape while continuing to train others, or she might begin subtly undermining certain rules while enforcing others. This would set up her gradual evolution into the covert resistance figure she becomes in the Testaments. This outcome would remain true to the show's consistent message that moral clarity is a luxury rarely afforded in totalitarian regimes where survival often necessitates compromise. The final prediction: a phoenix from Gilead's ashes. Based on all available evidence, particularly the confirmed Testament's connection, the most likely conclusion for Aunt Lydia in the series finale will be a definitive turn toward covert resistance without a complete extraction from Gilead's power structure. Episode 10 will likely show Lydia processing the deaths of Lawrence and the other commanders, perhaps being questioned about her outburst at the gallows, and ultimately making a calculated decision to remain within the system, specifically to undermine it. The emotional fulcrum of her story will almost certainly involve Janine, whether through Lydia failing to save her, thereby cementing her commitment to resistance, or successfully protecting her, demonstrating her newfound moral clarity. What makes this ending particularly powerful is how it transforms Lydia from a symbol of Gilead's oppression into a symbol of its inevitable downfall. The very qualities that made her an effective aunt, her attention to detail, her understanding of the system's weaknesses, her ability to navigate its power structures, become the tools she'll use to dismantle it from within. This conclusion honors both the character's complex journey and sets up her crucial role in the Testaments, where she leads the Pearl Girls and works as a key informant against the regime. It allows for a redemption that doesn't feel unearned or oversimplified, but acknowledges that atonement is a process, not an event. For a character who began as one of television's most chilling villains, ending the series as the hidden spark of resistance represents one of the most comprehensive and satisfying character arcs in recent television. It suggests that even those who have participated in terrible systems can become instrumental in their downfall, a message of hope within the show's often bleak landscape. The legacy of the Aunt, if Aunt Lydia concludes, "The Handmaid's Tale, as a covert resistor preparing to undermine Gilead from within, her legacy in the series becomes one of the most powerful examinations of complicity and redemption in television history." Her journey from enforcer to saboteur suggests that systems like Gilead contain the seeds of their own destruction, that those who know its machinery best are ultimately positioned to dismantle it. Ann Dowd's nuanced portrayal has transformed what could have been a one-dimensional villain into one of television's most complex characters, a woman whose journey from cruelty to conscience forces us to examine the capacity for change even in those who have committed terrible acts. In a series that has consistently explored the gray areas of morality under oppression, Lydia stands as perhaps its most profound example that people are neither wholly good nor wholly evil, but capable of both tremendous cruelty and surprising compassion. So as we approach the series finale on May 27th, the question remains, will Aunt Lydia's redemption feel earned? Will her turn against Gilead be explicit or merely suggested? And perhaps most importantly, could you have imagined, back in Season 1, that you might one day find yourself rooting for the woman with the cattle prod?